Hi, my name is John, and I agree for this video to be made publicly available. The focus of my SLP was to create a program to mimic the behavior of smart home devices, such as Amazon's Alexa and Google's Google Home. So while these products are backed by large corporations and experienced teams of engineers and computer scientists, I feel like they have some major flaws. For instance, the biggest one to me is that they lack a level of customization at the software level. Because these companies are large and they're trying to sell you a product, they don't want to give you the source code or have access to the source code. So the only way for you to customize them is the specified blueprints that they have, and you can connect the pieces together, but there's no way to actually completely 100% make it your own work. So that's kind of what I'm trying to get around, is to make a product like these that the source code is available to you and you can tinker with it if you're an admin, and you can go through it and it doesn't affect any of the other users, just on that one device. Another big problem with these devices is that they only work when they're connected to internet. Now, I know that in this day and age, internet's everywhere. We've got 4G, 5G now, and Wi-Fi is in every household. But sometimes, internet can fail. For whatever reason, your bandwidth may be very small. And so if you have multiple devices on it, it could make sense to have this device not connected to the internet. Or just if you have it and you are away from home, maybe you're camping or whatever, just to have some core functions available to you that otherwise with an Amazon Alexa or a Google Home would not be accessible. So my goal for this project was to create a prototype of a program that I could build off of in the future, going through schooling, getting more training, and just getting more knowledge on it. This year, I was able to create a program that implemented classes, threads, and file input and output to store user data. And I'm working right now on a search function. But now I'm just going to go through the program just as a general overview of what it does, and then I'll go step by step through each file, each function, to show you kind of what I was doing, what I was thinking, so that you can see the actual source code of what I was doing.
John. Set timer 1. Add 2 and 4. Subtract 3 and 2. Multiply 4 and 5. Divide 21 and 7. Search for male. Exit. Exit. So here I'm just going to walk you through all of the files in my program. So we'll start with the first one, the add command. This is it's in the works. It is to add a suggested command from an admin for future development. So this is the add command. It's in the works right now, but it is used by admins to add a command for suggestion for future development. This is my calculator class. It's really simple, just 4 static methods, but I do plan on adding more methods, such as a power function, and eventually I'd like it so that you don't have to just do an add command, but actually set up a whole equation, and it will figure out the operations that it needs to do and in what order. This is my database class. It is essentially a list of users, and you can add and delete users from the list, which will then delete them or add them from the file as well. This is my input class, or input method. It takes input from the microphone and puts it through the Google recognizer and returns that input. However, if it can't recognize the audio, it throws an exception. So I will print this statement to say, sorry, I couldn't understand you. Could you say that again? And then it goes back through the while loop. This is my main program. So as you can see, a bunch of import statements. I have some default variables such as the search engine, Google, the user file. This is just to make it easy if somebody wants to change the name of the file, or if I want to change the name of the file later. I first load up the database from the file, user file. Then I ask the user for their name, get their input, search for the user in the database to see if they're there. And if they're not there in the search users function, it will create a new user and pass that back. This is a flag just to run as long as the user does not run the exit command, which sets the flag to false, which will terminate the program. And then it's just a bunch of if and else if statements from then on. This is my timer thread. It's a very simple thread. It just has a certain amount of time, and I made it a daemon thread for right now because for development, if I want to exit the program, it won't exit unless it's a daemon thread. If it's a normal thread, it will continue running in the foreground and will not let me do any Linux commands or anything like that. This is the search users. So as I said before, it will look for them in the database, and if they're there, it will return that user. It'll greet them. And if they're not, it will greet them, say nice to meet you, and it will create a new user, add that user to the database, and return that new user. This is my user class. Right now there's just a get first name, get last name, a greeter, a farewell, and then a string. This is more for debugging purposes so that I can print out the whole list of users. And here is the file. It has all my users in it, their ID. When a new user is added, they're added to ID 0, and then at the end of the program, when it's terminated, it will run through this whole file and then give them the last number. So it would say the last number is 5, add 1 to it, they would be added to 6. This is my user add function. It will open a file, read it, and this is where it'll get the last ID, and it'll add 1 to it, and then it will append the new user's information to the file and close the file. This is my user init function. This probably took the longest. It was also one of the first things that I did. It will open a file, make a database, just the list of users, and I read in all the files, or all the lines from the file, save them in this list named names. I initialize the ID count, and I will just run through all the names and recreate their users every time, and then return the database to the main program. And that's it.
So in the future, I'd like to add some new functions, such as an alarm, an inbox checker that checks your email for you to see if you have any new messages, and a weather forecast to tell you the weather over the next day or 3 days or a week. But other than adding new features, I'd like to improve some of the existing ones. For instance, the input right now is a little iffy. Sometimes it hangs over a little too long, and sometimes it doesn't pick up what you're trying to say. So I want to add something in the beginning of the program that kind of calibrates the microphone to adjust the settings and for ambient noise in the room. And maybe just every once in a while will automatically calibrate based on the wave file that is coming in from the microphone. Also, I'd like to make a version that is able to function offline. Obviously, some of the functions wouldn't be able to work, like searching the internet and things like that. But I know that right now I'm using Google's speech recognition software, and you have to be connected online. But there are some speech recognition softwares out there that don't require you to be online to use. But Google's was very easy and it was free, so for right now, that's what I'm using for development. I'd also like to add audio output to this program to make it a little bit more practical, a little bit more like the Amazon Alexa and the Google Home, because right now all the output is going to the screen. I'd also like to make this a standalone product, not just a computer program, so something that I can upload to a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino and plug it into a wall outlet or have it battery powered so that you can have it running constantly. And with that, I would have to add a sleep function that would sleep and wait for input and wake up when a certain keyword or a button was pressed. And using something like an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi would also allow me to plug it into my computer and re-upload some changes or any updates to the program that I make. But eventually, I would like to dive into updating over an internet connection. That way, if this product were actually to go, to consumer, that they could actively update it without having to send in their product and me having to upload anything. But anyway, thank you.